Good afternoon and welcome to Design Master Training. My name is David Robison. Today we are going to be looking at labels for one-line diagrams in Revit. If you're attending the training live, you can ask questions in the chat box. If you're watching the recording of the training, you can call or email your questions. Our phone number is 866-516-9497 and our email address is support@designmaster.biz. So the topic for today are labels on one-line diagrams in Revit. So we've got our Revit drafting view open here. And we've got a one-line diagram that Design Master's put together, and we have these labels on it. And out of the box, Design Master comes with a number of labels, but it's not always the labels that you necessarily want to include. So I want to talk about what options you have for getting additional information on your single-line diagrams as labels. We leverage the default functionality in Revit for this. So all of this is at some level just standard Revit labeling, but I do want to talk about how that specifically ties into what we're doing with our single line diagrams. I do want to note that these labels that we have here, all of these with the names and the voltages and everything else, they are display labels only. They are not for making changes. If you do ever need to make a change, you want to use the Design Master edit command, and you can select the device, and then you can make your changes here. So if we need to change the size of this transformer, we can change it here from 75 kVA to 112.5. Do that. We make our change through the Design Master interface, and then that's going to update it here and everywhere else that needs to be updated. So don't try and modify this label and update these values because it's not going to work. And it'll just change it back, and then you'll be frustrated that it keeps changing it. So don't try and change these numbers directly, change them through our interface. These labels are detail item tags in Revit. So everything you know about those applies here. They're really standard Revit features. The tags are applied to these families, and the tags can show parameters from the family. So if I take a look at this family, it has a number of parameters on it. All of these DM ones are the ones that Design Master providing. You can also have your own parameters on the single line diagram. These parameters are actually being pulled from the model family. So we have this transformer here on the single line representing the transformer. If we run the highlight device command, we can also open up this transformer on the plan. And so this is the transformer in the model. This is actually the transformer in Revit. So this is the transformer that Revit knows about. And this is the transformer that Design Master has linked to it. So here is where the true information is stored in the model device. Over here on the side, again, we have all of these parameters, some provided by Revit, some provided by our software. And this is all the information that we can then export to the single line diagram and then use for our tags. This information is transferred automatically from the model to the single line diagram. All of these Revit ones, we transfer to the DMER shared parameters that we have available. So if we go back to the single line diagram, all of these DMER correspond to a Revit property of the same name. So this number of phases or this mounting, if we go back to the transformer here, the mounting is going to be probably easier to find. So mounting is going to correspond here. So mounting, we export as DMER mounting. So we have our own shared parameter that's pulling the parameter from Revit. We couldn't reuse theirs just because of the way things are internally put together. So we transfer it from a Revit parameter to ours on the single line. For standard shared parameters, ones that you or we have created, as long as the names are the same, as long as they're the same parameter, we will transfer it from the model to the device. So if we look at our device here, we have a number of parameters. We don't have all of them. We actually limited it a little bit. The more parameters you have, the longer the transfer takes. So we tried to limit the number that we have here. You don't want to load it up with too many. But we've got the DME and feeder length, for example. If we go back to our plan here and look at the model, there's going to be a corresponding DME and feeder length somewhere in this list. So this value here is going to be transferred from the model to the single line diagram. So that happens for Design Master parameters, and Design Master is going to be updating these values here. So you don't want to update these values in the properties. You again change them through the Design Master edit commands. However, if you have your own shared parameter, you can tag it on your model and then also put that parameter in the single line diagram, and our software will transfer it for you. So if you have additional information that our software is not providing that you need to have documented on the model and in the single line diagram, get it in the model, get it set right there, and then it'll transfer to the single line diagram. So let's take a look at how that works. If you go to your Manage tab, you have your Shared Parameters button here. This opens up the file where you have your shared parameters being stored. Typically, your company is going to have a shared parameter file. So we have one here. It's the training parameters where we can create a new parameter. We're going to create a new one, call it training text. It is going to be a text parameter. It'll be in the common section, and that's enough information there. We'll do a training integer as well. So we'll have two values. So we have two shared parameters that are going to be not design master, just standard shared parameters. So that's how you can define those in Revit. We can then go to our family. I'm going to edit this family and add those shared parameters to it. So we'll go into parameters. We'll go shared parameter. We'll select it. We will add this. It's going to be an instance. I'll actually add them both. All right. So now we have two new shared parameters on this transformer. We will load this back into the project. If we select the transformer, we have our training text. I'll put in an example information there, and then somewhere in here, we've got the training integer as well. So I can set a value there. So now we have those values assigned to shared parameters. To get those to the single line diagram, we need to have them in the single line diagram family as well. So I can take this family here, which doesn't have those shared parameters currently. Again, we'll run edit family, and then we'll add those parameters to this family. Do it the same way. Select our parameter, make it an instance. You do want the ones that you're going to be changing this way to be instance parameters. That way Design Master can have access to them. If they're type parameters, we can't make changes to them. So you want to have them as instance parameters in your single line diagram families. Even if they can be typed parameters in your model, you can do whatever you want there. But on the single line diagram, you do want them instance parameters. That gives our software a little bit more chance to make changes to them. Load that up into our project. Now, if we look at this transformer, it has the training text shared parameter. And at the bottom here, it's going to have the training integer as well. So we have those two new shared parameters. They're not set correctly yet. To get those to update, when you run the calculate, it'll do the update. Basically, when it does a single line diagram update, those will get transferred. The most simplest way to do that is to calculate the whole project. So we will do that. Now that the calculation is done, the text has been updated with example. The integer has been updated with 100. I'll show you how to do the Design Master parameters. If you go to Manage and you go to Shared Parameters, currently we're using our training shared parameter file. Design Master ships with the Design Master shared parameters. So that's how we share it with you. So if we go to our C drive and we go to Program Files, Design Master, Electrical RT, we have shared parameter files. They're based upon the Revit year because Revit kind of keeps adding stuff. So generally, you just want to go back to the oldest version you're using and select that shared parameter file. They're not all that different. So if you choose a newer one, it's not going to be a huge deal. You just might choose a parameter that's not being used. So we'll choose Revit 2022 because that's what we have to be in. And now we have access to all of the Design Master shared parameters, and we have a lot of them. But what we can do here is now add this shared parameter, add shared parameters from Design Master to this family if we want to. So again, you would go to create and you'd run the family types and add a parameter. And now you're choosing from the Design Master list rather than the Revit list. We'll take this panel upstream description. So if we want to have that as a shared parameter, we could just take that. So anyway, you can put any sort of Design Master ones. And if they're already on there, it's going to do that. So choose one that's not already there. But that would be how you could add a Design Master parameter if it's not already on your family. Now we need to get these parameters to display as text. And to do that, you modify your detail item tag. I'm going to take this tag and I'm actually going to modify it. So we'll make a new tag, but use this one as our base. So I'm going to edit this family. And I'm going to do a save as so that we have this saved somewhere. We've got this text. So this is a tag label that we've defined using Revit. So if you want to change your text styles or other things, you need to go into your detail item tags and modify them here. We ship with everything's 10th inch text. That's what we have by default, but you can modify that. You run edit on label, and this is where you define the parameters that are being used. So I'm actually going to get rid of all these. And let's add those training parameters that we created. If I go to new add parameter, we're actually still pulling from Design Master. So we need to go back and change our shared parameter files. Just be aware as you're doing this, if you're getting the wrong shared parameters, go back to manage, go back to your shared parameter file, get the right one selected. I have that on my desktop. Select my training parameters file. All right, now I can modify this. Add, we'll do the integer. Put that in, and we'll also do the text. So we'll have both of these on here. We'll do a line break between them. Now, Revit has a bunch of options here. So all of the options that exist still exist. We'll say this one is the integer, and this one's my text. You could have more appropriate labels, obviously, but just for examples, we'll put those in there. All right, so now we have our new tag. I can load this into my project. And then Revit by default is just going to start tagging with it. So we can tag it if we want to. So we'll do a tag here. And now we have our tag with those two pieces of information. If we want to add it to another piece of equipment, if we want to add it to this transformer here, annotate ribbon, tag by category, you select the transformer, and it will put the label in there for you. Now, these parameters don't have values, so it's not as interesting because we didn't set them in the model yet, but we have the labels being displayed here on the single line diagram. And as soon as we update them in the model, they'll update here. So we can go back to the model, highlight that device, change those values, and then we'll have them transferred to the single line diagram. This one's on level 2. Set that integer to 200 here. So we make those changes in the model. Go back to the single line diagram. I'm going to try calculating part of the project to speed this up a little bit. TP2A. So now we have those two values being displayed here. So that's how we can get the information from the model to the single line diagram in a label that can be Design Master related or just other shared parameters. So if you wanted to, you could also do additional Design Master values here. So we can go back to the shared parameter. I'm going to make a new one. Say we want one that has fault on it. You can edit this label, get rid of those values. And actually, we need to change our shared parameter file again because we're going to pull a Design Master parameter this time. Now we can edit this and add a parameter. And we want the utility fault for this example. So we'll load up the utility fault. So there's our utility fault. We will load that into the project. And we can tag. So you want to tag this panel. So now we have the fault being displayed on our single line diagram with the number being calculated by Design Master. Now, so the last thing I want to show you is how to get these labels to insert automatically. When you put the devices in with Design Master, we load in these labels for you. So if we go into the one line and we insert a new panel here, we'll take LP3, choose our panel, and you'll see that it comes in with these labels in specific locations. The way we do that is with an additional project that we've defined. So Revit doesn't have a way to define where these labels should go. So we had to come up with our own system for doing that. So this is where we are going off of what Revit does, and this is specific to how Design Master works with the families that we insert on the single line diagram. So there's this family, and the family is the DM EQU panel top. So there's a family file. There's also a corresponding Revit file, and that Revit file is where we define where those labels go. So if we go open up that Revit file, now this information is going to be stored in your application data. It's actually this information, if you go to customization and user options, it's in your customization folder. So this is where all of your files that Design Master is going to use for your families live. So you can change the folder here. You actually press open to go straight to that folder. So I will do that to go straight to it. And we're looking for the DME EQU panel top file. And you'll see that there's the family here. There's also a Revit project with the same name. We want to open up this project and we're going to add a new label to it. So I'm going to take that folder and I'm going to go ahead and open up that file. When you're doing your work on these files, be aware that they're going to convert to the version of Revit that you're doing. So make sure you're doing this work on the oldest version of Revit you are going to be using, because if you go back and try and use these files on older versions of Revit, they won't open. It's that's just how Revit works. We ship everything in Revit 2018 format. If you're not using Revit 2018, you don't need to leave it in that format. But if you open it in Revit 2022 and then try and use it on the Revit 2020 project, that's not going to work out. So you can see here we have these two labels. Those correspond to these two labels that went in when we inserted the panel. Let's add the fault. So I am going to take my fault family, and you need to get this loaded into the family. You can either use insert and load from family. If you have them both open, you can just go to the family here and then load into project. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to load it into my Revit project here. And I will insert it. I'm going to select it. I'm going to get rid of the leader line, and we'll move it up here. Okay. So now when this family is created and inserted using Design Master, we're going to include this fault value in this location. So I will save that, close that file, and now I'm going to insert a new panel here. Take this other panel, insert it using that same panel top. And now it includes that fault label as well. So that's how you can get additional labels to automatically appear on the single line diagram. So out of the box, we're displaying some values. I won't even pretend that it's maybe the best set of values, but it is a set of values that document a single line diagram. But what you want to display is often going to be different than what we display. So that's how you can get additional information to appear automatically, so you're not having to do it on every project, every device you put in. You can do the same thing with feeder families. So this breaker is a feeder family that we have defined. So it's the DME feeder circuit breaker. And if we scroll here, we have the same thing happening. We have the circuit breaker family and then the circuit breaker project. And that's where we know to load in this label that's being inserted here. So if you want to do the same thing with your circuit breakers, you can also do that. So that's how you do your one-line diagram labels in Design Master and Revit. It's largely using existing Revit functionality with a little bit of work on the Design Master backend to make it a little bit more useful, getting the values from your model to your single line diagram. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I will answer them there. Our Design Master transformers default to 75 kVA for insert create or insert link, even if we specify a different size in the dialog. Would this be an issue with our template family? Yes. You have to be aware of how the size of the transformer is being set, because Revit doesn't have a concept of a transformer size. They don't have a place that's an intrinsic Revit value to put the kVA. So our software and everyone else who creates a transformer family has to have their own special place to put a transformer size. So every single place you go has a different transformer size. So it's a bit of a coordination just issue you have to be aware of. So if you go take a look at these transformers that we have in this project, this is the sample Revit project. They have these types. They say 15 kVA. They say 30 kVA. That's just random text. The fact that you as an engineer know that it's 15 kVA and 30 kVA is good, but it doesn't mean that Revit knows that it's 15 kVA or 30 kVA. Revit has no idea. That's just the name of it. It could be, Bob and Alice for all it cares. It doesn't have any idea that there's any electrical information stored in the types. So what you need to do is actually get that electrical information in the types in a way that Design Master can recognize, because there's no way to put it in there that Revit can recognize, because Revit doesn't have a concept of a transformer kVA. Design Master fortunately does. So what we can do is we can go into this transformer, and if you run the family edit command, we can change our device type from other to transformer. So you're telling it in Design Master, treat this as a transformer, and now you can actually set your transformer size in a way that Design Master knows about. Set it at the family level. You can also set it at the type level. And for this example, that's what you want to do. So we're going to override these values. And we want to set this to 3 because this is the 3 kVA version. Set this one to, well, there's not a 6 here. If we don't have it there, we set it custom, we set 6. There we go. You can go through and set it that way. So that's how you can set the types and the kVA values in Design Master. You also could turn off this. It's probably easiest to do this at the family level. Have this kVA be based upon another parameter that you've defined. So you can run the based on the select based on parameter and set a parameter. And here, if you have a kVA shared parameter of your own, you could assign it to Design Master. So then you have a shared parameter in your Revit family that you can set however you want. You can type it in, you can have it defined by the type, whatever you want to do. And then that's going to drive the kVA in Design Master. So you can have it driven by a shared parameter that you provide. And this is the way you wire that up. You do that in the family, selecting it there. And then once you've done that, load this family back into your project. Then when you put it in, Design Master actually knows what that kVA is going to be. Otherwise, it's going to put it in by default to 75 because we have to choose something. And that's something that we choose kind of in the middle there. So that's why they're all coming in at 75 because they haven't been defined otherwise. So define them properly, and then Design Master will know what to do with them. Thank you for watching today's Design Master training. Contact us with any questions or comments. Thanks.